Ahead and start recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ask a Mentor panel and info session about research in the HARCSS, the Humanities, Arts, Cultural Studies, and Social Sciences, including collaborative digital projects. My name is Yasmine Hachimi. I'm the program coordinator and advisor at the URC, and I'm also a PhD candidate in the English department. And today I'm going to be talking to you about our Mentor Mentee program, give you a little bit of information about that, and then we're going to be talking to mentors, graduate student mentors who work in our program and who are doing incredible research, to just give you some background about how they got involved in research, the current projects they're doing, how their research has been impacted by the global pandemic and social justice issues that are going on. And then we will follow that up with Q&A where you can ask all of your questions. So let's get started. So the Mentor Mentee Program in Humanities, Arts, Cultural Studies, and Social Sciences pairs graduate student mentors with second year and third year new transfer undergraduates in the Humanities, Arts, Cultural Studies, and Social Sciences. And we aim to introduce students to academic research and help you build your research and analytical skills. And we're so excited to have this program growing. And I want to mention that it's funded by the Office of the Dean of the College of Letters and Sciences, the Office of Research, the Office of Graduate Studies, and the Undergraduate Research Center. So just to give you a brief program overview, once you submit your applications, it's our job to pair mentors and mentees together. So when you're going through the application, make sure you're giving us as much information as possible so we can make the best match for you. We usually host a welcome event. Of course, this year we'll be doing that virtually. And then once you've been paired with your mentor and the mentor and mentees have been paired, you're going to create quarterly plans for winter and spring quarters. And basically what that means is you're going to get together, mentees will get together with their mentor, and you're going to outline the parameters of your work you'll be doing. So you're going to set up your expectations, what goals you have, and those are your research goals, your personal goals, your professional goals, and really think about what your shared vision of success is while you're in this program for winter and spring quarter. We also have monthly activities, and those include finding campus resources. You might be asked to investigate funding and presenting opportunities, or to do some grad school prep. I do want to mention, though, that in the past year, because of the pandemic, we did dial back our activities a bit. And so I think it's important to mention that while we do have a structure to this program, we're also flexible in that we want to make sure that we're meeting your needs and that the program is supporting you. So if you are a mentee and classes are getting tough, you still have a research project that you're working on with your mentor, and some of the other things become a little bit too difficult, that's okay. Communication is important. You want to make sure you're communicating with your mentor, who will then communicate with me, so we can just make sure that you're supported. Because yes, this is a research program, but also you are a human being, you are a person living in this world. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that we all have to hold ourselves gently during this time and always, and be really aware of that. We also have an activity grant, which is really exciting. Mentors and mentees, like the pairs, can apply to receive an activity grant. Typically, this is used for off-campus research or experiences that will benefit the mentees' progression and growth. Of course, right now you might say there aren't as many like in-person things you can attend. You might not be able to physically attend a conference, but there are so many online conferences going on. A lot of them are free. However, if they're not, the activity grant is something great to consider, or just any other exciting activity you can think of where you might need financial support, whether it's for materials or an admissions fee or something. So that's something to think about. And lastly, we have an end of year event where our mentees get to share their work. It's really exciting. So yeah, that's a little bit about our program. So eligibility requirements. Mentees have to be currently enrolled and continuing undergrad students that are in good academic standing, which is a 2.0 or higher. This program is specifically for second year or third year new transfer students. So if you don't fit that requirement, we do have other structured programs that we have within the URC that I'm happy to talk to you about in the Q&A. Or if you have questions about that, you can reach out to us either at the URC email, which I'll give you at the end, or my personal email, and I'll be happy to direct you to a program that you can participate in. And lastly, of course, you have to be a major within the humanities, arts, cultural studies, or social sciences. So for requirements, again, it's a 2-quarter commitment, and that's for winter and spring quarter. You will have an hour-long meeting with your mentor every other week. We encourage you to meet weekly, but we know that might not work with your schedule or your mentor schedule, so that really is flexible. We just want to make sure that the two of you are meeting, that you're getting the support you need. Another requirement is timely completion of mentor assigned tasks. So when you fill out that quarterly plan, as you're deciding your goals with your mentor, between the two of you, you're going to decide, okay, well, how do we meet this goal? If the goal is to present at a conference, you might need to conduct some research, write a talk or a little research paper. And so your mentor might give you some assigned tasks to do, and you want to make sure you complete those in a timely manner. Of course, that's going to be up to you and your mentor to decide the time frame of that. We also require mentees attend events and complete program activities as scheduled. However, we understand that not everyone can attend every event, and a lot of the things we'll be doing will be done virtually, and we'll try to have them recorded for people who can't attend. But we want to try to encourage a sense of community amongst program participants. And finally, at the very end, we ask mentees complete a program evaluation so we can continue to build this program, improve where we need to, and keep it pushing with the things that are working great. And then at the end, you receive a certificate of completion. So some of the benefits for mentees are becoming familiar with and learning how to conduct research in your field of interest. You might get help developing a research project if that's something you're interested in, or you might work alongside a graduate student and help them with their research or in a lab. There are many possibilities for this. You'll acquire valuable skills to help you find a research mentor. If perhaps you've not yet reached out to faculty or not sure how to do that, you'll have your graduate student mentor who can help you navigate how to send emails to faculty, how to talk to them when you're in a Zoom, a little bit different, of course, than face-to-face, but how to maximize those meetings. You can also learn how to prepare for graduate school if that's something you're interested in, although we know not everyone wants to go to graduate school. And of course, you can gain professional and career skills. So how do you apply for MMP HARCSS? You can find our application on our website, which our lovely program specialist D is going to drop in the link in the chat. It's at urc.ucdavis.edu/MMP. The priority deadline is next Wednesday, October 21st, just before midnight. And our final deadline is Wednesday, October 28th at 11:59 p.m. So I hope you'll apply. If you have any questions about the application process, about whether or not you think you're a good fit for the program or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. And you could also ask them during the chat. So right now we're going to switch directions just a little bit to begin our Ask a Mentor panel. We suggest that you put your video on speaker view so you can see each of the panel speakers as they're talking. And just a brief introduction for our graduate student mentors. They're going to be able to tell you a lot more about their research as the questions come up. But we have Lily Bell-Deer, who's in developmental psychology, Samuel Pizzello, who's in the English department, and Rizky Nayuli Siregar from economics. So thank you to our wonderful mentors. The first question for you all is, what inspired you to enter your current field? And go ahead and unmute yourself and let's get this party started.
Cool. I guess I'll go first. Right, so I study developmental psychology, but I also am kind of at the intersection between development and health. So I study how children's health is impacted by their environment. And I really thought I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. I had taken AP Psych in high school and was just in love with it. And then in undergrad, during my senior year, took health psychology, and I was like, this is super cool. I love this. I got really excited about trying to figure out how stress impacts us. And I realized that, the stress that we experience in early life has really big implications for our mental and physical health going forward. So that's how I figured out I was really interested in studying how kids' experience of stress impacts their health moving forward. So that's how I got into my field.
I guess I can go next. So I am a college dropout who basically was working a desk job for a few years and was really not enjoying it, and felt like, okay, I want to try my shot at going back to school and seeing how that works. So I went back through community college and ended up in a state school. And I just knew that I wanted to do something I was passionate about. So that was my only driving purpose. And I took the required English course, and they were teaching critical theory, which is just basically a set of tools for understanding a lot of complex phenomena. And I was like, okay, sign me up. This is insane. I'm really pumped about this. And so I kind of took that and ran with it, and realized just on the spot I wanted to be a professor if I could swing it. And so that's kind of been driving me ever since. And as I just let my research carry me where my passions lay, I ended up doing science and technology studies without even knowing I was doing that. And that's basically just, looking not at the science itself or the technologies themselves, but looking at how they're produced, what sorts of human assumptions and biases and cultural aspects go into the production of that knowledge. And that's what I do. I got really excited about doing that kind of thing. And it was kind of very unexpected for me. It was, something that hit me out of the blue.
Amazing stories. Hi, I'm Kiki. So as you see, I study economics. So why I got into economics, I already studied economics since undergrad and then masters and then here. So I didn't bother to even try other things. But I think what motivates me is just basically looking at the social problems around me and economic problems around me. I come from Indonesia. When I grew up, there was a big financial crisis that happens in Asia. So that kind of like maybe triggered my interest in how very macro things can affect people's life. And then we learn also, I think many of you also have heard about global financial crisis in 2008, which affect everyone in the world. So these are many like macro things that happens beyond you that can affect you, your family, your jobs. So that's how I got interested in economics. And currently my research is more about how international trade also affect how people do their living locally in wherever, like mostly in developing economies.
Thank you all. So I think you each kind of touched on this a little bit. How did you come up with your research topic? Or I guess we would call it like our dissertations, our research. Kiki, you kind of already mentioned what it sort of led to that. I wonder if you could just dig a little deeper to tell us a bit more about also the sort of transition from like undergrad to graduate research, and how if you held on to an idea when you were in undergrad, how that might have changed or developed once you got into grad school.
So I think and I talk about, I think this is also maybe relevant for many undergrads also. Start with something that bothers you or excites you. So either way, because research can actually be daunting and it can be boring because you try to really dig deep on or focus on something that is really narrow. So it can be very tiring in terms of mentally. So if it's exciting for you or if it bothers you a lot, then it gives extra motivation for you to hold on. So I think that's how how I start to find what my research project like right now. For example, I study about how do commodity boom impact like local area in Indonesia. How do foreign direct investment impact smoking prevalence? Because I got so worried about smoking prevalence in Indonesia, things like that. So it starts from actually what I see in the news. And how I transition, there is no other way, and I don't know, maybe Sam and Lilybell can also chip in on this. I think there is no other way than trying it. So I encourage you to apply to this program. It it's not that, like, of course, when you start research in undergrad, not most people don't start with any project that can win them Nobel Prize, for example. So what I think it's important to also for us to remind ourselves is an accumulative process. So having a mentor also really helped me in getting deeper and deeper. I didn't know, for example, how deep I need to be in working on dissertation before, for example. So this guide or like this feedback loop, it's very helpful for me in transitioning from undergrad level and then master's and then dissertation level.
I can go next. Yeah, for me in undergrad, I just kind of cast my net really wide. I didn't really know what kind of research I wanted to go into. I knew I was interested in mental health, but beyond that, nothing. So I worked in a bunch of different labs, and just getting that varied experience really helped me figure out what I wanted to do. Like at first I worked in a lab that focused on like how mental health is viewed in the justice system. And I was like, that's super cool, but that's not what I want to focus my work on. I worked in an autism lab. Again, I thought that was super cool, loved working with kids. But that wasn't what I wanted to continue doing. I finally got into a stress lab. I was like, oh yeah, that is it. That's what I want to do. So I had a very vague idea of, I want to study stress and I want to study kids when I entered grad school. And I think the first 2 years were really just me figuring out, okay, what in this field do I want to focus on? And, getting a couple of different research questions that were really thought out and things that I was really excited about spending the next couple years pursuing, and even, being on the job market now, what I want to do in the next 5 years. So it just took a long time for me to figure out exactly what those questions were that I wanted to study. And I think that the classes that we took early in grad school really helped to do that, because you're exposed to so much different information that, it helps you figure out like, okay, which of these have questions I think still need to be answered, and how do I think I can contribute to this? And yeah, the mentors I've had along the way have also been super helpful, just to, if I think of this really cool research idea, they can say, that's a great idea. Someone's already done it. So maybe you can tweak it in this way, or just point me in the right direction of where I need to go.
Yeah, so as an undergrad, my research project was on the comparative HIV and AIDS epidemic and cultural response in both North America and in South Africa. And now I study the global history of games and video games all the way up to the present. And that demands some sort of explanation. Basically, I was reading up on high frequency trading and futures markets and all kinds of like stock exchange things related to Africa, and how Africa is continually like kind of coerced back into really extreme economic situations, and realize that there's so much rhetoric about games, and everyone talks about the markets as a game. And so I was like, okay, that's weird, and maybe that's worth researching further. And the interesting thing is, when I first got to grad school, I was an open book. I was willing to research whatever. And, echoing the other panelists, I think that what was much more important as an undergrad was casting a wide net, having a lot of different projects, and developing a flexible and pliant toolkit of sort of how to approach research in general. And that allowed me to quickly pivot to an entirely different project, because my professors are total enablers, and they're like, that sounds weird and cool. Why don't you do that? You're going to have to learn Korean if you want to cover esports. You're going to have to, learn Chinese if you want to read up on the origins of Wei Qi, that sort of thing. And so that encouragement from my professors, and just like following my gut instinct and having a wide toolkit, I think was what allowed me to shift into what I'm obsessed about now, a really cool research project.
So research looks really different depending on what field you are. We know that there are people in the social sciences. If you're in psychology, you might be working in a lab. People who are working on history or literature might be in the archives doing work. And so the level of interaction that you have can vary as you're doing your research. Some research lends itself to more like solitary work, and other research is more collaborative. And so I'm wondering if you could talk about what your research is like. Is it a bit more solitary? Is it more collaborative? Does it change depending on what where you are in the process? And also, I'm wondering, for those of you who are involved in collaborative projects, what that looks like, and if you could talk a little bit about those collaborative projects, specifically if they're in the digital. Of course, I'm looking at Sam because I know he's in the digital humanities and doing some wonderful work, as is everybody. So I'm wondering if you could talk about what your work actually like looks like, and who you interact with, and how often that happens.
Yeah, why don't I start, since I heard my name mentioned. I both do, as you're mentioning, I'm starting to sound like I have extreme inability to like concentrate on one topic, because I do yet another digital project that's totally different from anything else I've talked about. But basically, my research, because I have two projects I'm working on simultaneously, ranges from very isolating, where I'm just alone with a book on the computer, just reading and my eyes hurt and I'm drinking coffee, to like a radically collaborative, lab-based project, and like a digital lab. So like computers and computer scientists and statisticians all kind of working together. So I'll talk about the latter of those two things. I am the co-creator and project director of Project Quintessence, which is basically a digital project that tries to look at how language and culture changed in England between the invention of the printing press in 1470s all the way up until the beginning of the Enlightenment, like right around 1700 is where we cut it off. And in order to do that project, I had to collaborate with a bunch of people who do totally different things from me. So there, as I was saying, I literally am in the same lab as statisticians, as computer scientists, as people who do psychology, like lab psychology, people who do all kinds of different things, and that has been extremely rewarding and uncomfortable at times. I've had to learn to code switch and speak different, describe my project in very different ways, or ask different sorts of questions in different contexts. So I would definitely encourage doing something like that, but there's a cost to doing that, and you have to meet, I think, other disciplines on their own terms. Otherwise, it just doesn't look good, and no one really wants to see that sort of work. So I think it's exciting, but there are some risks involved.
Sure, I can go next. Yeah, so pre-pandemic, my day-to-day, I was usually in the lab every day. So we have a couple of grad students in our lab. We have a team of like 24 undergraduate RAs. So we have a really large team. So I was interacting with people every day. We have a couple of projects in the lab where we had people come, we had participants coming in, and a couple where we were working with existing data. So those are a little less intensive, but yeah, now things have changed a bit. So I've had to switch all my stuff to online studies, which is fine. But I'm getting much less interaction with my research assistants. They're all working on different projects. But I do have a couple of ongoing collaborative projects that are really exciting. I do have one with a few folks in the computer science department, where we have this huge data set of longitudinal data from the United Kingdom, and we're asking them to help us to use their, I don't understand how they do it, but this algorithm that they've made to do essentially machine learning to find predictors of depression. Super cool, way over my head. Definitely get what Sam was saying about the code switching. We have such different terms for what we talk about in psychology, and their terminology for their computer science work is super different. So it's a lot of communication errors and trying to figure out what exactly we're talking about. And I've also worked with some folks in the economics department too. There's a Center for Poverty Research here at UC Davis, and I've worked with some of the faculty in that group as well. And it's kind of similar. Like, we actually are researching very similar questions, and you'd think that the methods and the statistics and everything are really similar, but they're super different. And I didn't know that going in. So that's been really fun to kind of figure out and learn about. But yeah, it is different for sure.
I can go next, of course. I'm the last. I think in economics, there are two ways of how we can work with data. So in economics, we usually also use data, or unless you are a theory person, so you work with math. But there are two ways you can get data. One is you go to the field, you collect data, you do surveys and everything. Like last year's Nobel Prize winner is actually about that method, if you want to check it out. But most of the other economics don't go to the field, and we just use like secondary data. So census data, survey data that are widely available or not widely available. It depends on what you need. So in that state, our work can be very solitary because you can work on your own, and we don't need really a lab. So we can just use so many like softwares and to work with the data and the analysis and so on. But what I would like to point out is that for the one that works on the field, it's kind of daunting. It's hard, difficult, it's challenging to do it now. But I think we can also find other ways to find, like, there is never what I want to say is there is never a ultimate method to find answers, I think. So that's challenge us to find out how we can answer in different ways. I just would like to also point out about collaborative projects. I think learning from Sam and Lilibel, also I echo what they find. It seems that it needs some kind of expertise before we can really collaborate, because they expect us to be able to explain things from our end, right? So we need to get some expertise. But being an undergrad, it's always great to be able to talk with not only your major, but also others to find out what's actually happening or how people see one thing in different ways, right? Like, perspective is always a good thing to learn from each other. So, like, for example, right now, the collaborative project that I have right now is with global public health people and political science. Although we talk about the same set of data, but we have different interpretation, right? So we need to have some expertise on our own. They need to have their expertise on our own to be able to get to the middle. I think that's all for me.
Sorry, I couldn't, the unmute button wasn't coming up. I was like, we're just going to sit here for a moment. So I want to be conscious of time to give some room for our Q&A from the attendees, but I do want to ask you all how your research has changed amidst the pandemic and ongoing social unrest. I know, Lilybelle, you touched on this a little bit. So if you could speak to that, and then talk a bit about why mentorship at all levels is important, and how what your experience has been in the Mentor Mentee program.
Yeah, like I had mentioned, my research is all switched online. I had just, proposed the final chapter of my dissertation, which is supposed to be an in-person lab study, and got it approved March 9th. So obviously that got thrown out the window. So I'm now doing an online study, which is good. I'm stoked about it. It'll be exciting to see how it turns out. So that's kind of how this has changed. But yeah, I think I've touched on this a little bit too. Mentorship has just been so vital into getting me into the program where I am. No one in my family had gone to graduate school before me. I didn't really know what it was before undergrad. And so, I had some really amazing mentors there, professors and just older undergraduate students, because the school I went to didn't have grad students. So just the people who I was able to talk to there really explained the process to me and made it seem in reach. So just having that in undergrad and continuing to have strong mentors into grad school has just been so essential in making me feel like this is something I can do and something that I can see a path forward. But I'm going to do this program again if I'm accepted. So this will be my 4th year in the program. I've absolutely loved it. I've gotten the opportunity to work with 3 amazing mentees, all of whom had interest within psychology, but they were super different from mine, which was great because that just meant that I got to learn something new. And although they weren't super interested in working in my lab, just fine, we really worked on finding a research position for them in another lab, and how to contact professors to find a mentor, how to go about applying, and what sort of preparation you need. And we also talked a lot about grad school, like what kind of programs would be best, if they need to do a master's or a PhD, how to apply, what sort of aspects of an application are different from undergrad, because you're asked to write a personal statement for grad school. This is very different from the personal statement you write for undergrad. I had no idea about that until I was applying. So just talking through some of those steps has been what we've done. And yeah, I've really enjoyed it. So I'm happy to join on again.
I can go next. So I think there are 3 kind of questions blended together. I'll try my best to blend them, but basically, as far as the current situation is concerned, it's exhausting. It's mentally and emotionally exhausting. There will be weeks when I don't do any work at all, and I feel like I get on myself for that. I feel very guilty about it, but I just can't produce, and I think that it's important to recognize that things are different and that no one should expect themselves to proceed as normal. Other times I'll be more productive than usual because I'm taking refuge in my work, and that's a break from sort of the incessant hum of the news and other pressures, so it's hard to say. I think just giving yourself a lot of grace in this sort of time is really important, which leads me to the people who are best at giving grace, your mentors. I find mentorship extremely important. As I was saying, I wouldn't have chosen the research projects that I'm on right now if it weren't for a mentor. I think oftentimes, everyone has their own experience, but for me, I kind of needed permission to let myself do what I wanted to do. I needed someone to tell me that that was allowed. And that's exactly what mentors have served for me, as sort of enablers to say, no, you know what, you're smart, you have what it takes, just do it. So that was really important. And beyond that, like Lilybell was talking about, so much of grad school and so much of research is about social capital. It's about knowing the codes, knowing the unspoken rules, and how to navigate those spaces, and who to talk to, and how to make an argument, and what sort of arguments worth making, and where to publish. All of that, like, you need a mentor to help you with that. You don't have that experience at birth. It's not imprinted on your forehead, and so I found mentors are really sort of that person who just gives me 15 extra years of experience in my field, and that's really crucial to your success. And finally, I have tried my best to model that mode of mentorship at the MMP, and I think that I kind of go into it each time just like waiting to see what emerges from the collaboration between myself and my mentee. And I think that that's led to really interesting and unexpected results. One year, I've been with the MMP 3 years. One year, I helped a student write a law review article because she was applying to law school. And the very next year, I helped a student write a creative writing piece on, quarantine times and love and life and in an uncertain age, and I think that both of those are research. Both of those are totally cool projects. But giving yourself the freedom to sort of pursue your passions and see what emerges, I think is pretty important, and is something that's definitely allowed and encouraged in this sort of program. So.
Just a little bit to add what Sam and Lilybell have said. I think it's also important to emphasize that mentors are not only there for you to navigate career as a researcher. So it's also about, I think I've been very grateful for in my life that I have mentors on other things. I didn't want to go to PhD. There was a time that I thought maybe this is not for me. And actually, not everyone has their optimal contribution do not have always to be a professor or academia. They can be a president, journalist, movie makers, or game maker, right? So I think having mentors kind of help you to also test around or give you some ideas what to do and how to start or how to approach certain uncertainties or certain precarious condition. So I encourage you to find out your mentors and build this mentorship relationship, not only also for research career, but in so many other parts of your life.
Awesome. So we're going to switch to the Q&A portion. If any of you have any questions, you can unmute yourself. If you're not comfortable using the audio, you can drop your questions in the chat, and I'm going to stop share so I can see if there are any questions coming through and talk to you all.
No.
Okay. Can students with STEM majors also apply for HARCSS Mentor Mentee Program? Unfortunately, no, unless you are double majoring. If you are double majoring, then yes, you can certainly apply. You really want to think about what kind of like a research project you might want to do. And if it lends itself more towards STEM, then this probably isn't the best program for you. But there are other programs. And certainly there are other programs housed within the URC, and you can find those on our website. But if you are interested in a project that leans more towards HARCSS, then this is a great program for you. This program is not, unfortunately, for first years. It is specifically for second year and third year new transfer students. That is one of the requirements of our program. But again, there are other programs that you might be able to get into. So if you're having trouble navigating those or finding those, go ahead and send us an email, either to the URC or to myself, and we'll help get you plugged in. Are there common problems that mentees have that the mentors have helped undergrads overcome?
I can answer this, I think. So I've done mentorship program with URC for 2 years, and I think I got like 3 mentees along the way, 3 amazing ones. What I find common, at least in my case, in what I find is that it's in the beginning, the mentees cannot really foresee what they want to do and how they can proceed step by step. So usually people come with like, mentees come with like this big questions. I want to answer this problem about trade war between US and China, for example. And it's huge, right? Like it's a huge topic, but I think mentor can help you to find the balance between having a product so you feel gratified that you produce something, but also how to grow. So I think the common problem is mentee would need some assistance or guidance in how to cut the projects into pieces that is attainable.
This is a great question. Do you ever get tired of researching the same thing for a long period of time?
Of course.
Yeah, which is why I think it's important to have a couple of different related but somewhat different avenues of research. Because yeah, I mean, I just think back to when I was in undergrad, I got to do a thesis project, and by the end of it, I was so sick of just typing this one term that I never wanted to touch that subject again. But like, yeah, so it's good to have a few different projects in the works so that you can kind of jump back and forth, so that you're not just like, just burned out on one thing. But it definitely gets tiring after a while.
If I can add a little bit on that, it's really nice to celebrate any small progress. So you feel also gratified and you feel you grow with it. So unless with that, then research basically never ends. So there is no such a thing as like perfect. So you will never feel you're done. So you need to celebrate little progress.
So we have another question about whether you would be able to do your own project with your mentor's assistance. And the answer to that is, of course, yes. If you want to develop your own independent research project, this is a great program for you. There are some students who are interested in working alongside graduate students, as Lily Bell mentioned. She often works with undergrads in her lab. So that opportunity is there, although it really depends. So that's something you might want to mention in your application. If you already know there's a lab you're interested in working in, or a grad student who works in a particular lab who you want to be paired with, that's definitely something that you should let us know in your application so we can match the two of you together. That's great. Why not have, the structure of a program to help you along the way, especially if you've already figured out what you want to do and where you want to go. We're just here to help support you in that. Let's see. Are there any other questions? Did I miss anything? I was saying in the last UR Week seminar that I did that I'm so bad at sitting in silence, which is something as a teacher you're often told you have to really be comfortable with silence, ask a question, and let people have an opportunity to answer. And instead, I fill up time talking, as you can see. So do you have to be able to meet in person to participate in this program? No, you don't. And that's something we ended up having to do last year once the pandemic hit. We transitioned to fully online. In general, the program is very flexible. So we do have a Canvas course site, and that's where you submit things. Pre-pandemic, You would decide how you would meet with your mentor, whether it's in person at a cafe, whether it's phone conversations, if you wanted to FaceTime. And so we've switched to completely online. So you would determine between you and your mentor when you sit down and meet and have your quarterly plan, how you want to communicate. So part of figuring out what your goals are is also, okay, how many hours per week do we want to meet, or per month? What does that look like? And how are we going to meet? Do we prefer Zoom? And figuring out those times. So it's completely flexible, and you'll be negotiating so that both of you are like comfortable and satisfied with the outcome and the way that your like mentor relationship will look. Hopefully that answers your question. Is the program only for majors in HARCSS? What about a minor in HARCSS? In the past, we have had, I think we've had a mentee who was minoring because their research lent itself to HARCSS. So it really depends on the kind of project you want to do, where you see your research going. And I can definitely talk to you in detail about that more. I'm going to drop my email, if I can talk and type at the same time, in the chat. So you can go ahead and send me an email and we can figure out if this is the best fit for you. I hope it is. I'd love to have you in our program. And if it's not, we definitely want to find another program to sort of plug you in so you can get that support you need and conduct the research that you're really excited about. Any other questions? We have like less than a minute left. Okay, cool. Well, thank you everyone for showing up. I want to thank, of course, our panelists for participating and sharing their expertise and talking about their research. And of course, I want to thank Dee for helping navigate all of this, being tech support and running the chat. I totally appreciate it. Again, if you have any other questions, feel free to look us up online at the URC website. My email is listed there as well. All of the programs we offer are there. If you have any questions about eligibility or anything else, please reach out. Don't just sort of sit there in confusion and frustration. We're here to help you. And good luck to everyone this fall quarter. Thanks so much. Bye.